to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to the final edition of the UIAAA podcast for 2023. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Garrett Wilson, Director of Athletics at Brighton High School. Welcome to the podcast, Garrett.
Thanks, Hutch. Appreciate you having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience here in the U.S. and internationally now, where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Sure. I'm a Salt Lake kid, born and raised in Salt Lake. I grew up for the first part of my life in Kearns, and then moved to South Jordan when I was about 7, I think it was, and kind of grew up and lived there through high school. I went to Bingham High, so I was a minor. Played basketball all 4 years there, played football my first couple of years, and gave that up after my sophomore year. And that's something I wish I would have never done. I tell kids all the time now that ask, hey, I'm thinking about, just thinking I should specialize in one thing, do one sport. And I always tell them, hey, I did it as a sophomore. I decided I'd be done playing football, and I missed out on Friday nights, and that's kind of, I don't know if it's a huge regret, but it's just something that I'm able to tell kids, do as much as you can, because at some point you're not going to be able to do it anymore. And you don't want to look back and go, I wish I'd have done that. That'd been fun.
Yeah. What year did you graduate from Bingham?
04.
Okay. So I'm trying to get my 04. Sluga was gone by then, right?
Yeah, Slug was gone. He was kind of there all growing up, though. I always remember going to coaches' camps, all kind of prepping to play for Coach Sluga. But he ended up in 2000 was his last year, so that was just right before I came in as a freshman. And when I came in as a freshman, John Bosco had moved from Copper Hills to Bingham and was my coach for the first 3 years there. And then my senior year was Mark Dubaw's first year, actually as an interim coach. So that was my senior year.
Well, that's just as a side question. Bingham has a steep and storied tradition in basketball. So what is it like playing for on a team like that has so much legacy to live up to, I guess is the word?
It was phenomenal, just to be a part of that program, that really celebrated the history as it should with that much success. But it was just awesome to be a part of. I was fortunate that, I was able to play, through my 4 years there, and had some great coaches, great mentors. And actually, as soon as I graduated high school, I went right into coaching. So it's just something I knew I wanted to do for a long time. Kind of going back to growing up. My dad was a longtime basketball coach, Mark Wilson, coached at Cypress.
So I had no idea the connection until you just told me. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So coached at Cypress for a lot of years. So, I grew up as a coach's kid. I mean, I remember all my childhood memories are in Cypress's gym. I can tell you every little nook and cranny of that place. Mm-hmm. So that was fun, getting to grow up and be in the locker rooms and be on the buses and get to kind of live that coach's kid lifestyle. But that's what drove me into wanting to be a coach. Since a little kid, I never wanted to be a cop or a fireman or something else. I wanted to be like my dad and be a basketball coach. So right after I graduated high school, Coach Dubois hired me on as his assistant sophomore coach at 18. So I was coaching kids that I was just teammates with, the year before, and then took over actually as head coach that very next year and did that for the next 18 years.
Huh. That is fascinating. The amount of things that I don't know about. That's incredible. Let me ask you about you grew up in South Jordan, so I assume there was numerous opportunities for youth sports for you because Bingham has such a large number of kids in football, basketball, baseball. Well,
Yeah.
particularly baseball too, because that's another storied program.
Yeah, for sure. And growing up, so played as many sports as we could. I had 3 older brothers, so that was just kind of life for us out in the street playing wiffle ball or having the quarterback challenge in the backyard, whatever it was. That was life. So we had tons of sports, that organized sports that we were able to play growing up. Played basketball, played football growing up, played baseball. Baseball actually might have been my best sport. And I don't know why I ended up giving that up, but never played that, never got to play for the legendary Coach Sato, but got to build a really good relationship with him just as a coach there. I coached at Bingham for 10 years. Before I moved on to my head coaching gigs.
You'll appreciate this. It shows my age. It shows my age and Joey still being. Joey and I were classmates at the University of Utah.
How about that?
Graduated in the same year. And of course, he went back to Bingham because if memory serves me right, Joey played with Bruce Hardy back when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated back in 71.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, he's still there. And I've been retired for 10 years and I put 34 years in.
Yeah, hey, Coach, he's still going strong. He still loves it. Still has a passion for it. I mean, he's an institution when it comes to high school coaches in the state of Utah. So, yeah, real privilege to know him. And I know one of the questions you talk about a lot is mentors. And just some of those.
We'll just have you go right into that.
Yeah, we'll roll right into that, right? But those years at Bingham, I mean, I had so many great people to learn from. Not knowing that I'd be an athletic director, not knowing that was the role. I thought I was a lifelong coach. I thought I was going to coach basketball and do that for years and hopefully be one of those names like the George Slugas, like the Jim Jimmis, that I got to work with a little bit here when I got to Brighton, but never know that I'd become an AD. But was with Brad Bevan for kind of the last part of his career as athletic director at Bingham, and I just thought that was the norm. I thought that people cared about their schools and their community and put the time in, and that was just kind of the norm. And on leaving that, you really got to see, somebody like Brad, how dedicated he was to the school, so that's been something I've been able to look back on and try to take a lot of the things that I saw him doing, just with building relationships with coaches and coaches supporting each other, being at each other's events. I thought that was the norm when I was coaching there, and sometimes it's not. So it was really good to be around those guys. Jeff Arbogast, legendary cross country and track coach that,
with a voice like no other.
With a voice like no other. But Coach Arbogast, he and I have gotten to be good friends in my adult years, but I took his sports psychology class in high school, and that had an unbelievable impact on me. It actually pushed me into what I went into for my master's degree. I got in sports psychology and created a program here at Brighton that was very similar to his sports psych program that he ran at Bingham all those years. So Yeah, I just, now that we're sitting and talking about it, kind of reminiscing on all those years, it's amazing how many people you go back to and think about. It's kind of shapes what I'm doing today is I'm in my role as AD here at Brighton.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Garrett. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, wow. For sure, the biggest disappointment for me, as I said before, I was at Bingham for 10 years as an assistant. I actually only applied for one job outside of that for a head coaching job. Was at Jordan. When so I'm glad I didn't get it. I wasn't ready, and I thought I was. But it was good to have those 10 years to really learn what it takes to be a head coach and not just jump right into it. I think I see a lot of coaches nowadays that are really ambitious to become head coaches, and part of me just wants to say, hey, go be an assistant for a little while, kind of see what that's like. You'll learn a lot from that, and you'll learn some things that you won't have to learn the hard way as a head coach. But anyway, going back to that, I was there for 10 years, and at the end of Coach Dubaw's career, it was about the time I was looking, hey, this is time. I want to be a head coach. I've always wanted this, and this seems perfect. I've been here at Bingham. I've got great friendships, great relationships. They know me here. The community knows me. I'm as dedicated as anyone out there. I'm gonna apply for this job, and I think I should get it. And I didn't. That's when Jake Schroeder came in,
Right.
and he's an unbelievable coach. Now if you could ask me and we had an interview with me and him, I'd hire him. But back then, going through it, I didn't see it that way. So I was pretty jaded at the whole process. Here I am. I put in 10 years. I kind of started getting those entitled thoughts, like, hey, I put in my time. It was mine. I deserved it, and they didn't give it to me. And these are, the guys on the committee were the guys I was talking about: Brad Bevan, Joe Sato, Tom Sherwood, or not Tom Sherwood. Sorry, my old principal, but Tom Hicks.
Tom Hicks, sure.
And so just people I had really good relationships with, and just thought, man, this is kind of a no-brainer. I'm the new up and comer. I got to be the guy. And I didn't get hired, and that was really, really hard. But it also was the catalyst to making a change and going somewhere else. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, I loved my years at Bingham. I still have great memories and friendships from people back then. But it led me to looking elsewhere. And I ended up getting a job the next year with Scott Briggs at West Jordan, who is,
Sure.
a legendary coach in high school basketball. I'd always really looked up to him, but never, it was just always as an opponent. So I got to work under him for a year and see his process for doing things. And that was so valuable to get a new perspective of somebody that had so much success. And then that led me to my first head coaching job at Taylorsville as a basketball coach. And I was at T-ville for 2 years, and then got hired on here at Brighton, where I'm at now. So definitely a difficult thing to get told no, especially by your mentors and the place that you thought this is where I want to be. This is what I want life to be. But I look back on it now as I'm sitting in the office, the AD office at Brighton High School, just happy as can be about how life's turned out. It opened my eyes to other places, other people. So it was really hard to go through in the moment, but it led to something really great that I have here now.
That's an incredible story. I'm not smiling at you. I'm smiling. It brings back memories. I went through the same thing at Jordan High in the 80s.
Yeah.
Football coach Al Watron died of cancer. I'd been his assistant for 3 years. I was ready. I was the guy. Principal even told me shortly after, before the funeral, before they opened the job up, that yeah, you've put in your time. You should be the next guy. And so I'm thinking, well, I got this. I'm the
Yeah.
next guy. And I wasn't the next guy. And it was right about that time when I really became involved in the UIAAA. So this is 87, I want to say, maybe 88. And then, of course, I look at my life now and what the UIAAA has meant to me and the NIAAA and the things I've been able to do. And it's probably a good thing I didn't get the job. So,
Yeah. I just think that, Hutch, that's a tribute to just always trying to see the positive in something, always trying to make whatever circumstance that happens, the one door closes and another, window opens.
absolutely.
So that was definitely something I felt, and I feel was very valuable, but so cool. I mean, to think about what you've been for the UIAAA, maybe it wouldn't have happened.
Well, I'm thinking about it because I mean that's all I ever wanted to be was a head football coach. And of course, I look at it now, looking back, and of course, you're aware that my son-in-law is the head coach at Corner. And of course, you're really aware because obviously now you have Casey as your head coach, and that's. I look back at what I knew then, and I understood offense pretty well, but that was back in the days of the Veer. I mean, this stuff that Eric runs and Casey runs, I mean, it's above my pay grade. It's it's incredible that way. Let me ask you a question about the job of AD. I realize you haven't been at it that long, but you've been at it for a few years. Has it changed since you first started? Are a lot of things are the same? What are the differences? Talk about that.
It's only been a couple of years. I took over for Lynn Monker, who was, a staple at Brighton.
Lynn Monker, who took over for Richard Ball, who took over for Brent Smith. And I think that's the entirety of the ADs at Brighton.
Yeah, that's it. Which is, I mean, that's kind of crazy. I felt the same way as a basketball coach. I think when I took over here, I was the 6th basketball coach in the history of Brighton High School. And that's, I mean, there's some schools that have gone through 6 in 6 years. Then I get this AD job and I hear I'm the 4th one to ever have it. So yeah, I've definitely had some legendary people before me, but the job definitely, I mean, it's changing every year. I mean, it's changing seasonally. It seems like there's new things that we learned from, this fall season that, okay, we got to do this a little bit differently. Moving forward into our winter season, there's more and more that are becoming, it's just being seen as more important in the world of sports. And I just think our role as AD is just, it's just getting bigger. I was looking at you look on our district website and the essential functions of an athletic director, the list is as long as a principal, right?
Yeah.
You look at an assistant principal and the list isn't half as long as the essential function of an AD. So I mean that's truly, I think, what ADs are becoming, is in a way a vice principal, an assistant principal over this one specific department in sports. But it's just it's so vast and there's so much to it, that it's just it requires so much time and energy. That's kind of the main the thing I've seen is it's definitely a full-time job.
No question. And I, of course, am jaded and jealous because back when I retired, I was still teaching half the day. I had 2 periods on, and well, my prep period, which was actually spent in the AD's office, and then my AD period, which was spent in the AD's office, and then the 2 hours immediately after school, which was spent in the AD office. And so I'm so glad that, and of course, I think a lot of it has to do with our current superintendent, who's obviously a product of interscholastic sports and went on to become a great quarterback down at SUU. And I think having that background in athletics, it certainly helps because I know, I know how tough the job is, as do you. And I know how really tough it is if they don't give you the proper time. So thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you, so you first became an AD. So how did you hear about the UIAAA? Did Sherwood just say, look, this is the way it is. This is what you're doing? I mean, it's just Sherwood and I go way back. So.
Oh yeah. So when Lynn was retiring, Tom Sherwood approached me, the principal at the time, and just said, "Look, I want you to be our next AD, but there's kind of one caveat to that is you can't coach." Which caught me off a little bit because that was kind of always something I thought I wanted to do.
Well, and you get to a lot of the smaller schools still have, like 3A, even some 4A, you still have an AD that's a coach. But sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Yeah, no, and for sure. So I mean, and I thought, if as I got a little bit older and into coaching a little bit more, the AD job started coming up, and thinking, oh, maybe that's the route I go, and thinking about doing that, but could I do that and still coach basketball because I wasn't really done? Well, he just said, look, if you're going to do this, you got to be done coaching basketball. So that was a really tough decision, but ultimately decided what this job is, the impact that I could have in the school was just something that I needed, that I wanted to do for the next kind of phase of my career. So I hadn't really thought about it until that point when Lynn was ready to be done. So I mean, the only connection I had to the UIAAA was playing up at Wasatch with Lynn and Tom when they invited me to come with them, for the foursome. But once I got into the job, I understood how important our organization is, and I'm excited about learning more and being more involved with it moving forward. I've started my process for CAA certification. I've got 3 of the 4 classes done. I just got to do the 503 that I plan to do here before the spring. So hopefully I can sit for the exam in the spring and become certified.
That is awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. I know I mentioned the previous ADs at Brighton. You're only the 4th, and I think Brighton opened in 70.
Yeah.
69-ish.
970, yeah.
Yeah, so that's 50 years, only 4 ADs. I guess my question is, what's it like? Or have you speak to what it's like of taking over as an AD? I mean, Brighton's a legendary school. They got a lot of state champions, and they've had a successful run there. Obviously, a high academic school. So, is there a little bit of pressure there? Let's have you speak to that.
Yeah, for sure. It's humbling to be at such a successful place. My office that I'm in right now sits right in the middle of what we call our Hall of Champions, that I get to walk down every day to come into my office. And the 121 athletic state championships, trophies that you get to walk by, it's just impressive. It's just, one of the things that has been so important for me was to really remember and honor the tradition. I do think that's something that's becoming lost on some of our young kids nowadays, for a multitude of reasons, I'm sure, but just the connection to the school and the pride of the school is kind of being lost. That's one thing that I've really, it's been important to me to kind of show the legacy of Brighton, to let our kids know the legacy of it. Get to know some of these coaches that have been here that are that have done so many good things, won so many things, been so successful. Natalie Meyer, Todd Etherington, Ryan Bullitt, our one of our old football coaches who's still here teaching. There's just it's been it's really an honor to get to work alongside those people, but it was really important to me to show them, our community at large, the legacy that's been built here is something special, and it needs to be celebrated. So we try to find any way that we can do that, just to keep the past in our future, in what we're doing.
And that's yeah, I'm smiling because I think of the legendary school and all they've done, but I think Brighton is still the only school that I'm aware of that has a football field that runs east, well, mostly east and west, while everybody else has the standard, north and south look.
We have debates on that all the time. Well, what way are we? So where's our end zone when I'm writing the emails to our teams coming in? You'll warm up on the northwest side of and they're northwest. What are you talking about? You'll see what you get here. But when you stand out on that football field, it's pretty spectacular.
The view is unlike any other. It's incredible. Let me ask you this: what's one common myth about being an AD that you'd like to debunk?
Well, a lot of people on your podcasts, have mentioned this, but just the idea that we're not just spectators, we don't just go and watch games is definitely true. I'm not in my office watching ESPN all day, and then I go at night, to watch one of our sporting events. There's a lot more going on even when we're there that I think a lot of people don't realize. We're constantly assessing the situation. We're assessing how our coaches are handling themselves, handling officials, their interactions with kids, what our parent population's looking like, what our student population is looking like, and how they're acting at the games. Always thinking about, are there things that we can add to our venues to make things better, for other teams coming in, or just for the experience itself. So it's definitely not just a cush job. I do think it's a highly coveted job, and it's something that when I took over, one of the reasons why I was okay with stepping away was just that if I say no, it might not come back to me, this opportunity. I don't think I was ready to be done coaching, but this is one of those positions that I think you can have so much of an influence, that you really, if it's something that you're excited about doing, you don't want to pass that up. But there's a lot to this. It's the principal and me as far as who's spending the most hours in this school, and I don't even think it's close to that.
You are so correct. Well, I don't know if it's a follow-up question or just a follow-up statement. You talk about, and I know a lot of people on this podcast say, well, people just think you show up to the game and they think the game happens by accident. They don't understand what goes on. But you may be aware of, I'm not going to mention any schools here, but you may be aware of some officials that were accosted here. Well, by the time this airs, it will have been 2 months from when this airs. But as the time we talk, it's just within the last 10 days. I'm not sure where the AD was, or I know the AD wasn't there for the new AD workshop.
Yeah.
And these officials were left, from what I understand, on their own. They were getting trash thrown at them. Apparently, one or two of them assaulted.
Yeah.
And it was a bit, I assume you heard about it through Casey, but it was, and it was a big deal, and it should have been a big deal, because this, my way of thinking, this is kind of me being preachy, but I mean, it's AD 101.
Yeah.
You got a home game, football, basketball, gate reseated. Your first responsibility, along with the myriad of other things that you have to do, is you make sure those officials get on the field safely, and you make sure they get off. And I can remember sitting in the south end zone at Jordan, reminding the back judge 5 minutes left in the game. Yeah, remind your crew, we talked about this. We're going to meet at this corner of the end zone, and when that game's over, you drop that ball, you get here. And if it was a close game,
yeah,
I had a policeman with me.
Yeah.
If it was a blowout, I said, just get here and we'd mosey on back. But that's That's so important. And I think, boy, that also speaks to the importance of having properly trained ADs. So thanks for bringing that up. And I hate
Yeah.
to be preachy, but let me go on to the next great question, which is my favorite. What's the favorite part of your job?
Oh, as a longtime basketball coach and growing up as a kid from a longtime basketball coach, I mean, it's basketball's in our family. My brother Skyler's the head coach at Riverton basketball right now.
See, no, I didn't make that connection either, and I
So
should have with the same last name.
yeah, but basketball was just everything always. It's all we ever really, thought about. But stepping outside of that and becoming the AD, it's been really, really fun to get to see kids in other avenues. I mean, obviously, I know the world of basketball and what the team in basketball can create, but that environment's happening in, 20 plus other activities and sports going on within our school. It's just been really fun to get to see those kids in their element, see our lacrosse girls love what they do, get to go. And today we're playing in the semifinal for girls soccer today out at Zions Bank, and just being there on the field, watching those girls get to enjoy their experience, and then going to a baseball game, going to a swim meet and seeing that world of something that I never knew, because it's a winter sport. I've never seen a swim meet before. That's been really fun to get to know those kids and see them in their elements. Is probably the best part. Is I'm not just so isolated in my one sport and seeing the impact there, but I get to see and get to know so many other kids.
Well said. We'll finish with a couple of questions, Garrett. The first being, and I realize you're a newer AD, but you're not brand new. So I need Garrett Wilson's 2 suggestions to a brand new AD, and they need to follow Garrett's suggestions in order for them to become successful. What would your 2 suggestions be?
Well, my 2 suggestions are stolen suggestions from people that have done this for a long time, and that know better than me. But as you know, Hutch, all of us coaches, we steal everything from coaches before us anyway. So it actually makes sense, right? You figure out what is best practice and move forward with that. And kind of to sidestep and say, that's what's so great about the UIAAA, about this podcast, about going to the state conference, national conferences. You get to do that. You get to go learn and steal ideas from other people. One of the coolest parts for me, new in this, is just how open and welcoming everyone, all the veterans, have been to answering questions, to bouncing ideas off of, to, hey, can you help me out on this little situation? That's huge. So as a new AD, one of the suggestions is get to know others, get to know other ADs outside of even just your region, but likely there's some veterans in your region that can be a good helping hand if you'll reach out to them. Another suggestion. I mean, this is going to seem completely obvious, but get to know your coaches. That's an obvious. So kind of what I mean more than just get to know them, show their support, is go and help out with the little things. That's one perspective that I've had as a longtime coach and head coach for a long time now, is I still remember what it's like to be a head coach. There's a lot on your plate, and there's a lot of things that you got to try to balance. And sometimes you have assistants that are really great that you can delegate and give some things to. But I've found just helping out with little tasks with some of my coaches has really gone a long way. Last season with in the spring, the winter that we had, some really heavy snow was hanging on our batting cages out by our field, and it broke off some bolts at the top. And I went to our coach, Mark, hey, I'll take care of it. I'll go fix them for you. I'll go buy the bolts from Home Depot, and I'll get up there on a ladder and fix them, so we didn't have to worry about it. Up at tennis the other day, and Now it's, God, I got to order these tennis balls. I got to figure out. I said, hey, let me take care of it. I'll figure it out. Just little seemingly innocent things like that can go, I think, a long way to getting your coach's trust, especially as a new AD, somebody that's coming in. I've got Natalie Meyer, who's won X amount of championships, and I've got to kind of tell her, okay, well, this is how we're going to be doing some things. It'd be real easy to just say, I'm not listening to that guy. He's brand new. So just going out of your way to do those little things to show them, hey, I remember what it's like to be a head coach. Let me take a little bit off your plate. I think can go a long way.
I love that suggestion. There is so much wisdom in that. So thanks so much for sharing. We'll finish with this. Garrett, what questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I listen to the podcast every week, Hutch, and these are always fun ones to hear. So I'm just going to throw out a fun one.
All right.
MJ or LeBron? And my answer is emphatically MJ, no question.
And mine is too. And maybe it's because we're older. And
Maybe.
LeBron can play, but as good as he is, he's not MJ.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that would be debated with some of the younger folks out there, but in my eyes, there's no change in my mind. MJ is the GOAT.
Well, I love that. And so on that note, that wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Once again, our special guest today has been Garrett Wilson, the Director of Athletics at Brighton High School. Garrett, so thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
For sure, Hutch. Appreciate you again having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week, or actually now next year, for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.